Well, it ends up I had horses, and I took horse training from Ed Thornton. So I was training my horses. I was like, my friends from back east are like, I can't believe this. You're not doing this. Oh,
She's
yes,
changed.
I am. Yes, very much so.
Yeah. Hi, and welcome to the Desert Lady Diaries podcast, a weekly conversation with women who found their home in the Mojave Desert. I'm Dawn Davis, and this is episode 102. If you'd like more information about the podcast, it's all at the website desertladydiaries.com, and I invite you to engage with the guests, with other listeners, or me on social media, on Facebook and Instagram at Desert Lady Diaries, or on Twitter at Desert Lady Diary. Gay Smith was born in Waterbury, Connecticut, and was a teacher for 39 years with the Morongo Unified School District. After retiring in 2003, Gay became a real estate agent and then a receptionist. Today, she owns a vacation rental called Desert Willow Ranch and the Pioneer Wild West Theater. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
What was your first experience with desert?
Okay. When I first came out here, my husband, we met at the same school. My first assignment was Norco Elementary.
Oh, wow.
And so we met, and he had a cabin out on the mesa.
Oh,
so
nice.
At that first Christmas, he invited a group of us to come out to experience the desert. And we're all looking at each other because our other friends were from Massachusetts. And it was like, are you kidding me? All we could think of is Death Valley. And we got out here and we were pleasantly surprised. It was really very nice and very quiet. And yeah, it was really very, very different.
Than you expected.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
very much so.
So then the romance ensued, apparently.
Yes.
And then how long after that was it before you found yourself living in the Morongo Basin?
We came out every weekend and all our vacations, and we spent summer out here too.
Holy smokes.
Yeah, he had a prove-up cabin on the mesa.
Okay.
And so it had no electricity, it had no water. So during the summer it was really hot. And we decided we needed some electricity to at least get a fan and some lights. So he got a pamphlet from Sears, and he sat and he read it and he goes, I think we can do this. I'm looking at him like, are you serious? And sure enough, we went and got the permits and everything to do it, and we followed the little schemes and everything, and we put electric in the cabin.
Wow.
And the inspector was very impressed that we did it so well.
Well, you're teachers, you follow instructions.
I guess so. And then we went from there. After we had my daughter Heidi, we needed another room, so we added another room on.
Oh my gosh.
And then in 74, we moved out here permanently because in 72, I had a son, Trey, and he was allergic to the smog down. We lived in Corona, and it
Okay.
was so bad. And so we moved out here permanently.
Oh, wow.
And so we added on to that place.
Uh-huh.
And now, when I say we build everything, I mean we build the trenches, we do the concrete, the framing, everything.
Wow.
And so then we had this brilliant idea. We were going to open a preschool because we didn't. There were two here, but there was in Riverside many, and a friend of mine had one, and she was making money hand over fist. And we thought, well, I mean, that would be nice to just have a preschool. So we bought property on Airway in Yucca Valley, and we built the preschool there, 10 Little Indians. And then we found out that this was a retirement community. There weren't that many kids.
Oh, no.
So after working on that for about a year and a half, like I say, building everything ourselves, we ended up closing and renting it. And then when my daughter got a little bit older and she started driving, we didn't want her to go out on Old Woman Springs Road because there were no lights there. That was a death trap. So then we moved down to Airway. But we always had our place in Pioneer Town because after we were married, my husband loved Pioneer Town. And the Golden Empire was big then.
What was that?
It was a development.
Uh-huh.
Benton Lefton had this development. He was going to develop Pioneer Town.
Okay.
It was going to have schools and parks and a clubhouse and all this kind of stuff. So we bought 4 acres right after we were married up on a hill. And then in October, we bought another 4, so we have 8 up there.
And that's Desert Willow Ranch now?
No,
No, that's
up
different.
on a hill.
Okay. Okay.
And then Benton Lefton went broke, so that was the end of these big plans.
Right.
And we had a pad put in and a road and everything. So then my husband wanted to buy something in town. He and Bill Bragdon started the Bravados. They did gun shows on weekends
okay.
and everything. So every weekend on Sundays we'd be doing shows there. We were going to buy a house right in town, and what happened was the woman, I don't know, she was a little weird, and she was afraid that if we took all the siding off the house, because we really needed, it was pink, that didn't fit in with Pioneer Town.
No.
And we'd have to redo the electrical and the plumbing and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And she went crazy. She goes, well, what if you die? He's 30 years old. What if you die and then I'm stuck with this house, this frame? And I'm going, you're not going to be stuck with it. I'm going to be stuck with it, you know. But she wouldn't listen.
Oh, my goodness.
So we just pulled out.
Yeah.
And then we bought the 5 acres from Russ Hayden, and it was just vacant land. And at that time, Benton Lefton now started selling off the little, because he owned everything except for, I think, 5 buildings in Pioneer Town.
Mm-hmm.
So he sold off everything else.
Mm-hmm.
So now individual people owned it, and they decided they wanted to have the road open. So Main Street open. And when they did shows, well, people would be come flying down Main Street in their cars.
Oh, my goodness.
And my husband almost got hit a couple times while he was laying there pretending he was dead.
Right.
Almost was.
Oh, my goodness.
And so we decided, okay, we're going to, buy this 5 acres, and we're going to make it a little old west town, and we'll keep cars out, and we can have our shows there. Well, then we dealt with the county. They wanted us to pave all the roads, curbs, gutters, sidewalks.
No way.
Oh, yeah, we kept telling them,
Oh, no.
So then we just threw up our hands. We did get it rezoned for commercial. After my kids, the house on Airway, we turned the preschool into a 3-bedroom house. Then we decided, well, we've always wanted to live in Pioneer Town, so we moved up there. That was, in 92, the year of the earthquake. And we added a bedroom on.
So you talk about doing a lot of, construction and electrical work, and there wasn't Home Depot.
There was no Home Depot. There was no DIY.
Or probably Builder Supply, right? So
there were lumber companies.
Okay. Is that where you got most of your...
Up on the Old Woman Springs Road. Yucca Lumber, where Best Lumber, whatever it is now, on Old Woman Springs Road down in Yucca.
the Builder Supply.
Yeah, and what was the other one? There was one up on the top of the hill, Homestead Supply.
Oh,
so
okay.
we could get materials.
So there were materials,
but
okay.
the finding out how to do it
Right.
was the big thing.
No Google.
No, there was no Google. There was no DIYs on TV.
Right.
Nothing.
Right.
So we bought a textbook that they used at schools to teach kids how to build.
Oh, my goodness.
So that's what we used.
I want to go back for a second because early on in the conversation you mentioned that John had a prove-up cabin.
Mm-hmm.
For someone who's listening who doesn't understand what that is, can you kind of describe what that means?
Well, a long time ago, the government would sell you 5-acre parcels at a very cheap price if you would build a cabin on it. It had to be a certain size.
Mm-hmm.
That's why you see so many abandon these cabins all over the place, because people decided, I could buy this cheap and put this little cabin on it and maybe someday live there, but then the water was the big issue.
Sure.
So
Yeah. Thanks for explaining that. Yeah. And how did he come to have that property? Did he build it, or was that someone in his family?
He bought it. Actually, he bought it from Lon Chaney. And
What?
Yeah. I have the deed at home.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and it was, he bought it with his first wife. I'm his second wife.
Okay.
So
It's
yeah.
amazing to me when I hear things like that, because so many people think, even today when I tell people I live in the desert, they're like, well, what do you do out there? I said, are you kidding me? There's so much to do. But what's really amazing to me is the number of creative people that have been here, like Lon Chaney, or are here now, and nobody really knows they're here. And I think that's part of the draw, maybe, is that it's kind of, you can hide out in your place, to stock your fridge and your freezer.
That's true.
Throw on the swamp and you're good to go.
Well, there are times in Pioneer Town we don't have cell phone service, and Wi-Fi can be iffy. And when we have storms up there, and you're snowed in, I've been snowed in several times.
Sure.
So there's no TV, there's no internet, there's no cell phone service. Sometimes there's no phone service.
Wow.
And my grandkids go crazy. Grandma, how do you do that? I said, I'm a good reader.
Exactly. Right. And I would have a full stocked library. That's
Oh, yeah.
awesome. So talk about, because you've been here so long, first of all, how did you come here from Connecticut to California?
Oh, when I graduated from college, I graduated with an education degree. So trying to get a job teaching. Now, this was 64, and my class always was the biggest class everybody ever had. And we used to have to share books. We'd have to share everything. And trying to get even a job when you were 16, because there were so many kids out there trying to get jobs.
Wow.
It was always been difficult. And this was no exception, that trying to get a job teaching, and salaries back there were $3,200 a year.
Holy smokes.
And we just kept looking. One of the places we wanted to go was Boston. That was, forget that. So then we saw on the bulletin board at the college, somebody was out interviewing for Corona. And so we went to the interview, and he offered us a job on the spot.
Whoa, holy cow.
And we got $5,400 a year. We were uptown.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Pioneer Town and even just the Morongo Basin in general. You arrived in what, 69?
Well, we started coming up in 65.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and there was only one light in town, and that was at Old Woman Springs Road.
Holy cow.
And there was nothing beyond Old Woman Springs Road. That was just desert. There was nothing.
Wow.
And our place was on Avalon. And if we got here too late and it was dark, that was all dirt roads out there. And the only way we could figure out where what road to take was the mailboxes on the side of the road. So you'd look for certain mailboxes, and one place, the one that had like 10 mailboxes, you've got to turn here. So yeah, that's how it was. And then when we moved out here in 74, it was still a dirt road, but as we were building, the county is out and they're paving the road. Oh. And so my son is like, this was his TV. We'd set a little chair out there and a little umbrella, and he'd watch the tractors and everything. And come to find out, they closed all the dumps in the area, and they made the one in Landers the dump. And at that time, they didn't have the rule that you had to cover your trucks or anything.
Oh, so everything's flying everywhere.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Oh,
We'd be out there weekends, picking up trash.
So you've seen a lot of change in this area in the time that you've been here. Have you felt like it's come in waves?
Kind of. Pioneer Town has come in waves. It used to be, back in the 60s, it used to be a real going place. We'd have 4th of July parades, Easter egg hunts. It was a lot of fun, and people would come all the time. And like I said, my husband and the Bravados have their little shows on the weekend.
Right.
And then after a while, after they opened Main Street, then it kind of died down, and it was like a ghost town for so long.
Really?
Yeah.
Pappy's was a biker bar, as I understand
Pappy's,
it.
when we bought our property, it had been a gas station.
Oh.
And then the building had sat empty for quite a while. And then when the Golden Empire started selling property, their building was across from the post office, but the people couldn't find it because it was farther into town. So they opened that as their real estate office. So that was real estate office until the Golden Empire went belly up.
Yeah.
And then it was empty for quite a while. And then John and Francis bought it, and they opened the cantina, and it was a biker bar.
How do you think bikers found the place out here like this? Just driving around?
Who knows? I have no idea, but that was not a fun time.
No?
That was a scary time.
Was it really?
Yeah.
Do you remember some specific things that
There
happened?
were stories about, night fights.
Oh, dear.
One time we came up for the weekend and somebody came and told us there was a night fight on our property.
Oh.
And somebody was stabbed. I'm freaking out.
Sure, yeah, because
So-
you're thinking you're coming up to this little, quiet
Yeah.
desert community, and then
Yeah.
all of a sudden. So what was it that changed that?
When they sold it to Pappy and Harriet was Francis and John's daughter. Because Francis and John let them wear their colors, or whatever that means. But
Oh, those are biker terms.
yeah, I'm not a biker.
Like
so.
bike gang.
Yeah. So when they took over, then they wouldn't allow them to wear their colors. And so then they decided, no, we don't want to come here. So then it got, over the years, it got better and better.
That was probably a very smart thing because, then there's no who's with who, and we don't like that gang, and blah blah blah. So it wasn't as exciting for them now to come.
That's right. Yeah, so it made it a lot better.
Now it's like this music venue. Was it always that way in the beginning, or was it just pretty much a place for people to come for supper?
It was mainly a place where people came. Pappy sang. Harriet made delicious food. And they would have bands there, but not like it is now. Robin and Linda have really done what a great job they've done.
Yeah, it's packed all the time.
All the time, yeah.
Yeah.
And I have to laugh, my kids, they have never been in there. Actually, I did take my daughter I think it was Thursday for lunch.
Right.
And that was the only time that she's been in there.
And she's a school teacher as well.
Yeah.
In Redlands.
Redlands.
So she's not that far away.
No.
Does she come out often to see you?
When the kids were little,
Okay.
yes.
How many grandkids do you have?
Well, 8, but I have 2 from my stepson,
Oh, okay.
and then my daughter has 2. In fact, Kayla just graduated from Cal State, and
Congratulations.
Andrew's a sophomore, and then I have 4 from my son.
Okay. And he passed away
12.
12, sorry. Yeah.
He had cancer.
Cancer. Was it a long time?
It was longer, I think, than what was diagnosed.
Oh, okay.
Because I kept telling him, go to the doctor, and the lump would disappear, and I go, you still gotta go. And finally he went, and the doctor, he ran some tests, and it's nothing. And then it got worse, and I said, you've got to go back to the doctor. So he goes back to this doctor, and it was because of his insurance. He did construction with Allen Engineering on bases. So he had to go to this one doctor. And so as he's leaving the second time, in fact, it was the Friday before Mother's Day, he calls me and he goes, Mom, as I was walking out the door, the doctor said, oh, by the way, you have cancer, and I've set you up with a doctor for next Wednesday. And I go, what?
Wow.
Yeah, I know. And so I spent Mother's Day with him and going, let's not get excited until we actually hear what's going on. And Wednesday he went to the doctor, and they actually put him in a wheelchair and wheeled him over to the hospital. And he had an operation the next day.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. And that must be a pretty difficult thing to deal with.
Yeah, you're not supposed to go, you're supposed to
children.
go after your
Right.
child. Yeah.
Yeah.
But we made a pact that he made the urn for his dad
Oh.
when he died, and that was on a Father's Day. And so our thing was, okay, we'll make a pact. If I go first, you make my urn. If you go first, I make your
Aw.
urn. So I had to do it.
Yeah.
And of course I made it out of oak, and that was a mistake.
Oh, why?
I told, that
Too hard?
part is that wood is so hard. I broke so many drill bits, and
Oh my gosh.
So I told my daughter, I said, I'm leaving you off the hook. I said, you can make mine pine.
Oh gosh. So teaching,
Mm-hmm.
from when you started, it was almost 40 years you were teaching, right?
Yeah.
So talk to me about the differences in teaching kids from when you started till your last class when you left.
Wow, there is such a difference.
Yeah.
When I first started, of course, there was no cell phones and all the rest of that stuff.
Distractions.
Yes, and I had 48 second graders. You had no aid.
Oh
and
my
this
gosh.
is Norco, and people were moving in like crazy. So they were just piling up the classes. But you could handle them because the kids were well behaved. You gave them seat work while you worked with the reading group, and they knew when you finished with the reading group that you took time, that you would come around and you would answer questions or help them individually.
Right.
And then when you took the next reading group, okay, you find something in the packet, you do something that you know how to do, or start one, and get to the point where you can't do it anymore, then put it aside. They took more responsibility for themselves. And the parents were very supportive of a teacher, where, boy, over the years.
Where do you think that switched? When, can you even pinpoint a space in time? Like early 70s, early 80s?
I would think like early 70s. I used to do this thing with the kids that it was like a little skit-like things, and it was to teach them how to handle situations. Well, one of them was they went to a candy store and they wanted candy, but they didn't have enough money. And so the first times I did it, they would talk with the proprietor, well, can I sweep the floor and earn money so I could do this? Or they came up with some really clever ideas of, how they could work with the proprietor to, earn some money so that they could get their candy. Or they would say, okay, I'll be back when I have the right amount, and I'd tell them, how are you going to get the amount? Oh, I think if I wash Dad's car, he'll give me some money. And, they had different ideas of what they could do. Well, I stopped doing it in, it had to have been 70, 71, when I used the same one, and the kid pretends he takes out a gun and shoots the proprietor. And I go, whoa, wait a minute here. What is this?
Oh, my goodness.
And the kids are all like, yeah, that's what you do. Oh, man, we had to stop right then and there.
Oh,
and
my
we had to have a
goodness.
discussion,
For sure.
about this.
What do you remember? What they said that made them feel that was the right thing, the right answer, or the right thing to do? Even
It was more like, they see this on movies and TV and stuff.
yeah.
Because it was getting more, I think the movies were getting more violent at that point. And so they thought that was the way they were supposed to do it. I was like, I don't think we're going to do this anymore because I
Yeah.
can't take a half a day explaining to you,
Well, and
why
you're-
this is wrong.
And you're almost stepping in and being the parent
Yeah,
instead of just being the teacher.
yeah.
And that's difficult.
It is. Yeah, you don't want to overstep your bounds.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Boy, when I left, I usually taught 6th grade. And my last couple of years, I taught 5th. And we do a program. I taught at Joshua Tree for 24 years. We do a program at the end of the year where we'd sing patriotic songs. We'd have the kids, you recite the preamble to the Constitution, the preamble to the Declaration, and it was really, really nice. So while I took the kids working on why I got the singing part, I'm teaching them singing and I can't carry a tune. The other gal, we made a patriotic quilt, and then we donated somewhere. Well, the last year, she says, I can't do this because they have to pin the fabric. They were taking the pins and sticking each other. And she'd collect the needles and they would hide them. It was beyond. And she goes, I can't do this. So that year we did not make a quilt. I think what she ended up doing is having them cut paper and then pasting it down. But they missed so much not being able to learn how to sew and stuff.
That's too bad.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah. So being a woman that grew up on the East Coast and then moving to the West Coast, did you ever imagine that you'd live on the West Coast when you were growing up? And since you did, what are some of the things that you've really learned to appreciate about the desert and the West?
I never dreamed I was going to be here. I never dreamed I was going to be in the desert. And Waterbury was the 3rd largest city in Connecticut at that time. Had 100,000 people.
Wow.
And we lived like a mile from the center of town. It was city life.
I was like 3 blocks. I could walk to Main Street because I grew up in Jersey. So,
yeah. Well, and Dad, we only had one car and Dad used it for work, so you learned to walk everywhere.
Right.
But, so I had never been around horses. I had never done anything like that.
Build houses.
Yeah.
Run electric.
My friends from Connecticut are they're like, oh my gosh, we can't believe this. Because in college, we went and did horseback riding. And I had never been on a horse. So I get on this big horse, and it starts walking. And I'm like, it's moving, get me off of here. And so then they put me on a pony that was absolutely wild. And I'm going, I'll never get on another horse again. Well, it ends up I had horses, and I took horse training from Ed Thornton. So I was training my horses. I was like, my friends from back east are like, I can't believe this. You're not doing this. Oh,
She's
yes,
changed.
I am. Yes, very much so.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I wouldn't have it any other way.
That's good to hear.
Yeah. Well, last summer, my daughter and granddaughter, because my granddaughter wanted to see where I grew up. Because, grandma's always, oh, yeah, we walked a mile to school through the snow
Barefoot,
and the rain. And, well, she was duly impressed of how far we had to walk. And we went to Waterbury. Oh, my gosh. Now it's a joke with us.
I was just going to say, when was the last time you had been there?
Last summer. And we stayed with my cousin, but she lived out in Preston, which is really a beautiful area. But we went into Waterbury. Oh my, it was horrible. Absolutely horrible. So now our joke is, if we get mad at each other, we're going to send you to Waterbury.
But she'll behave herself now.
Yeah, that'll happen.
I really appreciate you coming and talking today. There are so many great nuggets in there about the cabin and about Pioneer Town and Pappy's and all that stuff. So thank you so much for sharing some of the things that you've experienced in the length of time that you've been here. What I'd like to do before we go is to have you pick 4 numbers between 1 and 50. And then I will ask you those questions, and those answers will be available to the generous supporters I have through Patreon. So if you're listening and you hear the questions that Gay has chosen and you want to hear her answers, just go out to desertladydiaries.com, click on the support page, and check out the Patreon option. Your numbers, please.
1942.
Wow, you make it easy.
Yep.
Okay. So you find a lottery ticket that ends up winning $10 million. What do you do? What do you think about when you're alone in your car? What is the last gift you gave someone? And what keeps you up at night? So if you would like to hear Gay's answers to those questions, go out to desertladydiaries.com and check out supporting the podcast on Patreon. Thank you so much again for coming today.
Thank you.
I really loved hearing Gay talk about the history of Pappy and Harriet's in Pioneer Town. That was really cool. I neglected to mention here on the podcast that in honor of the milestone, I want to honor the first place I started meeting folks here in the desert, which was the Copper Mountain Mesa Community Center. It's one of the first places I went when I moved here, and I attended a potluck dinner and then a couple of pancake breakfasts as a patron, and then as a server, and then for the last year or so as the cashier. 90% of the activities at this center are fundraisers to keep the lights on at the center, giving folks in the area a place to come and get together, enjoy meals, and stay in touch with their neighbors. The center is also one of the sites in the basin of the USDA surplus monthly food distribution. The center was built in 1982 and is in need of a new roof, as well as some modifications to the kitchen to satisfy the San Bernardino County Code Enforcement. So in honor of 100 episodes of the podcast, if you are so moved, I would love it if you would make a donation to the center. To make that donation, you go to their website, cmmcommunitycenter.org, click on the Join and Renew tab, and scroll down to the yellow Donate button. If you'd rather mail a check, you can make it payable to Copper Mountain Mesa Community Association and send it to them at P.O. Box 1231. That's P.O. Box 1231. Joshua Tree, California, zip 92252. Constance, Anna, Pat, and Andrew, thank you so much for signing up for the weekly newsletter. I appreciate you. At the beginning of the podcast, I mentioned that I was going to be putting a survey out there to kind of take the temperature of the podcast now that I've hit 100 episodes. So if you're interested in taking that survey, which will probably take you less than 10 minutes, it's at desertladydiaries.com and click on the button that says survey. It'll be up there for the next 3 weeks or so, and I'll be giving reminders over the next few weeks about it. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what your feedback is. If you're looking to add some science fiction to your life, here's Jean-Paul to tell you how.
Science fiction stories and interviews blasting straight out of the Mojave Desert and beyond. Space Cowboy Books presents Simultaneous Times Podcast. Free to stream on your favorite podcast player. Find out more at spacecowboybooks.com and be sure to visit our store in Joshua Tree, California.
See you next week. Thanks so much for listening.